Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Stanley. I am a Master's of Social Work student here at Grand Canyon University, and today I will be completing the Planning and Intervention video presentation. My professor's name is Professor Ashley Santiago Fernandez. Today is October 29th, 2025. Today's agenda, we will be talking about my new intervention for the community problem. We'll also talk about a little bit about the community problem. We'll talk about goals, objectives, the target population, key components, resources, supervision, timelines, and outcomes. So let's talk a little bit about the community problem. As we discussed in our prior video, we talked about social worker burnout, which is a very, very real problem in the community. Okay, so social worker burnout does not just affect the social workers, it does not just affect the community, but it also affects organizations. So we'll get into it a little bit. 8 out of 10, which is 82% of social workers, suffer from stress at work, with two-thirds, which is 65%, saying that their mental health is suffering just because of their jobs alone. Okay, many social workers experience burnout due to heavy caseloads. As we know, um, the need for social workers is very, very real. It has increased a lot, especially since like the mental health issues have increased, and since we can now hone in more on mental health and other like areas such as homelessness, education, things of that nature. So social workers are really needed. So when the need increases, so does the heavy caseloads. Burnout is associated with 52% an increase in employee turnover rates. So 52% of employee turnover rates is based off of social worker burnout. And so we know this to be a true community problem. Consumers also experience gaps in care and services due to the issue. So we, even in my current field placement, I work as a case manager slash social worker. And what we've noticed is that when we are feeling burnt out as social workers, um, our work starts to change. So if our work is changing, that means we're not just impacted by the feeling of being burnt out, but so is the consumer, so are the people that we're servicing, so are the individuals that are really seeking and needing the services that we provide, right? So I've created a new intervention and I really haven't named it, but I do have two implementations for it. So number one, implementation of mandatory self-care practices by employers. I want to just interject here and let you all know that as social workers, as employees, we want to feel valued by our employers. So I believe that by implementing mandatory self-care practices by employers, we'll not only feel empowered, but we'll also feel valued and seen and heard. So, some self care practices include walking, journaling, exercising, support groups, mindfulness, and relaxation techniques, as well as engaging in spiritual practices. And with us being a Christian based school, when we look at Christian based practices or spiritual practices, when I think of those things, I think of things like prayer. I think of things like reading our Bibles. I also think of things like honing in on key scriptures that might take us through and might help us with the burnout feeling. Additionally, seeking spiritual guidance from our pastors or our friends or peers, community and church group members. Okay, so number one, the implementation would be mandatory self-care practices by employers. So this should be implemented by employers. The next implementation would be the usage of employee assistance programs, which you'll hear me refer to during this video presentation as EAP. Okay, so that's employee assistance programs. And these programs are free. They're available 24/7. And they discuss things and they help with things like therapy and self-care techniques. And they do this virtually. So you don't have to necessarily go in to a facility, but you can definitely do it virtually, which I think is very feasible, especially in this day and time when we're so busy and we're working and many of us are in school and we're trying to do like the work-life balance. Sometimes virtual is best. So EAP assists in things like work-life stresses, as we just talked about, anxiety, depression, mood disorders. They also help with other areas like finances, relationship issues, including divorce or family problems. So, EAP is a great benefit for employees and it's free. And so, free is always good, right? So the goals and objectives. So my goals and my objectives are number one, to ensure that employees are prioritizing their mental health, physical and emotional health, and overall well-being. So we want to make sure as a goal that we as employees and some as employers are prioritizing their mental health, prioritizing self-care. We also want to ensure that employees are encouraged by employers to utilize EAP, the program, and obtain free and confidential supports through their employer. Three of those objectives are number one, data tracking with summative evaluations regarding evidence based outcomes of utilizing self care practices in EAP. So we want to go back and look at the data. How is this going? Where can we fix this? What can be fixed? Do we have any tangible feedback from employees? Do we have any tangible feedback from employers? Have they seen a change in the work that the employer is doing now that EAP and self-care techniques have been employed? Okay. Also, quarterly meetings with program managers, lead supervisors to discuss employee feedback and areas of improvement for the overall employee experience. So, one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing while we're promoting employee assistance programs and while we're promoting self care techniques is to make sure that the employees essentially like it, that the employees feel or see a difference in their work, that they see a difference or feel a difference in their mental health when they're doing things like we discussed prior, which is journaling, spiritual contact, praying, meditation, relaxation techniques, things of that nature. Additionally, I believe that we want to create, as an objective, is to create a work group which includes case managers slash social workers to discuss boundary setting and ethical dilemmas. And this, we also want to make sure that we're talking about informed consent here, simply because there are some things that may come out, and we want to make sure that they know that they have informed consent. We all, even as employees, are that's our due right, right? Even with the quarterly practice meetings, we want to make sure that our ethical technology practices are being utilized. So we want to remain ethical. Everything that we talk about within those work groups, we want to make sure that people are remaining unbiased, that they're self-aware, culturally competent. Because what I may believe to be, um, what I may believe to be hard or overwhelming, other cultures may not believe that. They may feel like it's hard work. So, really honing in and having those conversations in the work group to find out what's happening. How are you feeling as an employee? How are you feeling as an employee? Do you feel burnt out? Well, how are you managing this? What strategies are you using? So, I believe that would be those three objectives would be really good to creating and to obtaining this goal. And the goal is to be emotionally, physically, and healthy mentally. So our target population, so I think I kind of hit on this a little bit earlier. When employees are burnt out, when social workers are burnt out, it does not just affect the social worker. So our target population, yes, number one would be all social workers because we want to promote overall healthy and well-being individuals. But it's also for the organization because we want to increase goal outcomes. We want to increase those services. We want to make sure that the providers that are helping us or stakeholders that they're getting what they put in, right? 38%, there's been a 38% decrease in overall safety, potentially impacting workplace safety measures and outcomes simply because of the overload, because of the burnout. Okay, so our clients are also a population. They're also a target population. We want to ensure that they're receiving quality services. I am doing my internship at a family care agency, but we want to ensure that they're receiving the mental health therapy that they need. We want to ensure that they're receiving the therapies that they need: physical therapy, outpatient therapy, housing, transportation, things of that nature. So we want to provide quality service. So again, this community problem does not just affect social workers or organizations, it affects the client who we're essentially here to serve. And we want to make sure that we're closing those gaps in care, right? So key components for us in this implementation planning process will look like obtaining inclusive data and feedback from all social workers during the implementation process via data collection. So that may look like surveys, that may look like the work groups kind of doing polls and how are you feeling? How is this working out? What do you feel like will work best here? Also, we want to make sure that we are ensuring that we're having monthly staff meetings and workshops with leadership to discuss self-care techniques. This is going to be imperative. Implement social worker support groups to discuss confidential work stressors. A lot of times people may be stressed because of high caseloads, but it could also be a coworker. It could also be the agency. It could also just be something that they're internally going through. So we want to provide confidential work groups and support groups. Additionally, we want to seek areas of improvement via feedback from social workers and leadership. I think it's very important when leadership and when employees and employers work together, we can obtain a common goal when we come together and work together, right? So resources will simply just include a team. Okay, so this team will be complete with a program manager, which will overall facilitate everything, a lead supervisor, and a social worker to create and monitor clear and concise goals. Okay. Another team, so this is going to be two teams. So one team is going to create the goals. The second team is going to review the summative data and feedback in response to self-care techniques, EAP programs, and support groups. So they're going to review the overall data and the feedback, just so we can see what areas we can, do better in or improve in or what's going good. Because sometimes there may not be an area of improvement. Everything may be going good. Social workers may be like, yes, everything's going great. I feel so good. But we need that data to see how things are going. Stakeholders, okay, so that's the last resource. Stakeholders are needed to assist with community level support, such as walking groups, okay, so that's a form of self care as we discussed. Walking, Milwaukee Recreation. So here in Milwaukee, we have something called Milwaukee Rec, and it's a program. It has different programs, different mindfulness techniques. They have sporting events, swimming, but coming together and partnering with these types of groups to ensure that employees actually feel comfortable. So an employee may say, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable going out and I don't feel comfortable connecting with EAP because that's a part of my employment." but they may feel comfortable connecting with the Milwaukee Recreation and their free therapy services. They might feel comfortable connecting with Milwaukee Rec and they're jogging because they have like groups that go jogging and it's called Milwaukeeing. I love that. But they have those type of groups where the Milwaukee walking group, they'll get together and just come to a common location and say, hey, we're going to go hiking. So they may feel better with those types of things um that are not a part of the organization. But for us, stakeholders and partnering with different people in the community, different organizations can really be beneficial to ensure the overall health of our employees and social workers. Supervision. So supervision would include monthly check-ins with implementation program leaders. So that's that initial team. So to discuss areas, to discuss plans, improvement, and updated goals. Also, we want to refer to the NASW Code of Ethics as a point of reference for self-care. Okay, so I really want to read this to you all. The code socializes. So this is the NASW code. So the code socializes practitioners new to the field of social work's mission, values, ethical principles, and ethical standards, and encourages all social workers to engage in self-care. So just to be in adherence to the NASW Code of Ethics, we want to make sure that we're engaging in self-care. And this is something that we're able to provide as a supervision, like a pamphlet or a packet or form to all the social workers to let them know, listen, we want to make sure that we are adhering to the NASW Code of Ethics. Also, we want to have a team that will follow up with social workers individually and obtain feedback. I know for myself, there are times that I may not feel comfortable talking to a lead supervisor or a program manager, but I might feel comfortable talking to someone one-on-one just to give them accurate feedback. So the timeline would include, so I think that 6 to 12 months to implement this program is feasible. We want to have a team to meet monthly, which is that initial team. They're going to meet monthly to discuss data, feedback, and areas of improvement. We also want to have monthly staff meetings with all employees to discuss self-care techniques, EAP feedback, and overall concerns. We want to do that mid break, so that 6 month review to change or implement any new practices, techniques, or changes. What I've noticed in what I love about timelines is that the beginning we're so gung-ho on certain things, but as you continue, like we said, month to month meetings, about that 6 month check-in line, you're like, hey, you know what, maybe we can implement this, maybe we can add this in here, maybe we need to take that out, that might be too much, and that could be overwhelming the social worker. So really just looking at how we can change things or how we can continue to grow to complete and achieve this overall goal. So lastly, our outcomes, okay? The main outcome is to ensure all employees are prioritizing their mental health, physical and emotional, and well-being. So their overall mental health, their overall physical health, their overall emotional health, and their well-being. We also want to ensure all employees are encouraged by employers to utilize the employee assistance program to obtain free and confidential support through the employer. Additionally, we want to improve services and supports, close gaps in care through the whole and healthy social worker. That is to benefit the client. We want to improve services for the client, improve supports for the client, close gaps in care for the client. And you do that when you have a whole and healthy social worker. Lastly, we want to provide evidence-based data to the organization to ensure that employees are utilizing and implementing this initiative. At the end of the day, this is not a social worker problem. This is not an organization problem. This is not a client problem. It's a humanity problem. It's a community problem. When we get the community empowered, which are the clients, to actively advocate for themselves. We do that by making sure that the social worker can actively advocate for him or herself. And we do that by empowering them to take part in self-care techniques. And also, we do that by ensuring that employers know and they're encouraging their employees to please take advantage of free services such as the Employee Assistance Program. It's beneficial, it will help, and overall it cuts down the burnout. We want to make sure that our employers and our employees don't feel it. We want to definitely make sure that our clients are getting the best care possible. Thank you so much. The next slide will ensure and reflect the references used during this. Thank you.